Welcome back to your Daily Dose. My name is Robert, here with my pal Billy, fellow Dollar Baby filmmaker. We're talking all things King Khan, the convention that happened in late October 2024. And one of the films that was there was one called Survivor Type. In fact, there were two Survivor Types, you
Yeah.
and Chris, who I'll get to talk to soon. Um, Funny story, you made them about the same time, around 2012. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I made mine in 2012. I think he made his early 2012. I can't remember exactly, but I remember we started going to the same festivals. And the first festival that we played at together, apparently they played them back to back.
Oh, wow.
And so it was like the audience got like this experience and then this experience. And I think that's so cool. I wish I would have been there. It was in Atlanta. I wish I would have been there to see it because both movies, I think they're good and I think they're really interesting adaptations, but they are very, very different from each other.
I was just going to say they're totally different perspectives. So let's jump into yours,
Yeah.
which you used, and people who haven't seen or read the short. In short, it's about a doctor who ends up on a desert island, not even desert island, rock pile, and tries to survive to stay alive. Ends up cannibalizing himself, and it's just freaking amazing and gory and as awful as it sounds, and yet there's something to it, and that's
Yeah.
why you made it, and you chose to do a found footage style, which people may know from like Blair Witch or something. Tell me why that style came to you and how it was effective, because it was effective.
Thank you. Yeah, it was almost immediate after I read the story and I knew I wanted to do a movie about it. Because the story is told in journal entries,
Right.
I thought the logical thing to do was just tell video journal entries, like a video diary. And the more I started conceiving of the story that way, the more sense it started to make. And the deeper you could dig into this guy, because he's talking right to you the whole
Yeah.
time that way. And I thought that
How
was super interesting.
how influential was 127 hours on you?
I have actually never seen it, and
Really?
I purposely didn't watch it because I
Okay.
was making the movie at the time it was out, and I knew what that movie was. So I said, I don't want to watch it to like
Okay.
influence myself or anything that we're gonna do. I want to start from scratch and only be inspired by this. And then I just never went back to watch it. So
Oh,
yeah.
do go see it. It's well worth a watch. So
Okay, cool.
yeah, it's different, but there's something there because that's only part of what happens in 127 hours. And yours
Yeah.
is short versus feature at any rate. So you make this film, and I mean, one of the many, and there's lots of stories from there, but one of the many stories in there is that there's brutal amputations that take
Mhm.
place multiple times. Talk to me about the prosthetic, the first one, the first amputation, and again, what went into it, the incredible people you had on your side, and what went wrong slash right.
Yeah. So we knew right away that the makeup effects were going to be the biggest thing in the movie, and if we didn't get those right, the movie wouldn't really work. The makeup effects and Gideon Emery's performance, but we can talk about that after. The so the makeup effects, we had to really plot out carefully what we were going to do and when. So the makeup team and I kind of had this whole grid of how many days he's been on the island. So that means a certain amount of sunburn, a certain amount of teeth rot, a certain amount of gaunts, that kind of thing. But the big effects, the big like the amputation scenes, uh, I wanted to start off the first time he does it with the biggest, nastiest, most in your face one because that's what we're doing the rest of the time. So it had to be big and bold, and we couldn't pull any punches. So we brought Gideon into the studio. They molded his entire leg from the knee down, and uh, they took all the time, did it right. The makeup effects artist was Doug Murphy, and he uh punched in every little hair, made sure every little crease was there, and it was phenomenal work. I think he was working on Dexter at the time, so he knew what he was doing.
Great.
But we put everything into that leg and then the fake ear that he had. Um, it's gnarly stuff, but it was really a fascinating process to watch because then on the day, um, the shot for the big amputation, it's found footage. It's one shot, so he's not
Yeah.
giving you coverage. He's not doing this. He set the camera down. Let me reenact for it. I have a camera right here. But he sets the camera down, and you see the leg that's kind of out, and an audience, oh, excuse me, who's used to effect stuff is sort of expecting it to cut away or to do something else or
Yeah.
look away. The camera gets knocked over. But I said, no, we're not doing that. We're going. So then we had the actor holding a knife, a real knife, excuse me, and a blood tube in his hand. And then he actually cuts through this
Yeah.
very, very realistic leg.
Yep.
And the part that all of that fantastic. And then the part that went wrong is that there's a bone in the leg that he
And what
was
is the bone made of?
excuse me. You know what? I don't remember.
Okay. But
Got it. Got it.
something
Sorry. Woo.
solid. That's okay.
Yeah. It was definitely something solid and he was meant to put the knife on the bone and smash it with a rock. And the
Oh,
idea being the bone would break, the leg was going to roll away, and then we cut. Uh, did not work out that way. The bone would not break, and so we ended up having to just cut. But it's still very effective.
yeah. I mean, all the cut jokes that people are telling themselves in the background that I refrained from telling as you were saying that. Cut to the chase. Cut to yeah. I mean, it was similar. That's why I set up the Gerald's game moment because similar to the Gerald's game screening, that's what happened in your screening. And you really enjoyed torturing the audience this way, I think.
I do love watching it with a crowd because most of the time people don't know what's coming. They don't know how realistic it's going to be.
Yeah.
And the first time I screened it with a crowd was Shriekfest in LA. And that's a horror crowd. That's a crowd that's like, give me your makeup effects. I want to see them.
Right.
And
Right.
they were shook. That was like a packed theater of people just uncomfortable and like squirming and screaming and cowering. And yeah, the at King Con it was the same thing. But it's like Gerald's game, they all know the story. They know
Oh
what's
yeah.
coming. They just don't expect to see it so in your face.
So I think I saw, yeah, because I saw yours during the day and then I saw Gerald's game that night. And that night when I went home, you know what the feeling was? It really, I said, because I'll admit, I'm a huge horror fan. I'm much more psychological horror fan. I can deal with some gross out, but I'll tell you, a film like Terrifier, no business. I won't see it.
Yeah, yeah,
Things that people call torture porn, a lot of Eli Roth, no offense, my friend, not a fan of.
yeah, yeah.
I just, when they're exploitative, yours is not. Gerald's game is not. There's a real story. There's a human condition going on. And so I'll put up with real pain there for a reason. And, you know, the feeling I had was one of a roller coaster. And I said, I think this is why some people are attracted to this sort of thing. Because with the roller coaster, you know the dip that's coming. The most terrifying part is going, it's not because I don't know what's on the other side of that. It's because I know exactly what's there
Yeah.
and it's going to get me. And that was the experience with both yours and Gerald game for me.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. It's a nice compliment. And it was a real trip to be making it and to know that what we were crafting was going to have that effect because Gideon's performance sells all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And just the way that he built the performance and the way that he crafted those kind of ups and downs. I mean, we did in the writing a little bit too, but he really nailed it with his performance.
Shout out to Gideon, who, by the way, is a man from the UK, did a
Hmm.
brilliant US accent amongst
Yeah.
others. So, all right. That's it for Survivor Type. You're going to have to find it somewhere else because we've talked about it enough and it's worth finding if you can find it. Look for your local Dollar Baby Festival. We're going to be back in a minute, though. We're going to talk a little bit more about King Kong in general, the effect, and maybe what's next. Okay. See you in a minute.
Yeah.